Welcome to the MemberWise Best Practice series. This video is brought to you today by the MemberWise Network, the leading free-to-join best practice network for membership and association professionals. We hope that you enjoy this great presentation, and for further information about our growing network, please visit www.memberwise.org.uk.
I can tell you are the die-hard committed professionals because you are here till the very end, so well done. And thank you for coming along. Can you help me out just for a minute? So I know who I'm talking to. How many of you are looking to implement a new, or thinking about implementing a new CRM system? Okay, that's quite a few. How many have done it recently? So how many of you are happy with your CRM system then? Oh, a few, yeah. How many of you are selling CRM systems? Ah. Very good. Right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who we are, a little bit about how we use our CRM database, our journey into moving providers, moving to a new, well, not even providers, but moving to a new system completely, and then the lessons we learned along the way. And I'm going to try, like the title says, I'm going to try to make this an honest presentation, because I think it's very tempting to get up here and say, oh yes, everything went well and we were on time and on budget and everybody was happy all the way through the process. But I don't think that's true of any CRM implementation. So hopefully there'll be some things in here that will help you. So this is us, the Association of School and College Leaders, also known as ASCL, also known as ASCL to our friends. We are a trade union. Fundamentally, that's our main purpose, but we also think that we act more like a professional body. Our members work in 90% of secondary schools around schools and colleges around the country. We have 18,500 members. We have 100 staff. 100 of those are in our headquarters building. We're based in Leicester, and 50 of those in Leicester. 50 of those are home-based, and they do a lot of traveling around, visiting members, providing support to members. So it's important for them that they are mobile and can easily access things on the web and access things by mobile. We have 3 staff in the membership office. We have an IT manager, and we have an IT support assistant. So I think for the size of organization, and you might say that's generous, I think that's quite a lean membership IT function. Our members are individual members rather than corporate members, so they pay their own membership. 90% pay for themselves, 10% are paid by their employer, about 90% pay by direct debit. So the direct debit function is very important to us. The remaining are invoiced, and they'll pay by BACS, they'll pay by check. We have 4 membership categories. So we have full members, we have some overseas members, a handful of overseas members, retired members, and then a category for members who aren't eligible to be full members, but do want to get some of the information and guidance and the other benefits. Within the full members, we have 5 grades of members. That's head teacher, deputy head, assistant head, business manager, and they all pay a different rate depending on what category they're in. As they move up and possibly down the career ladder, they will change grades. So although we have our direct debit renewals in January, throughout the year, every month we have people changing grades, we have people leaving, so because they pay a monthly direct debit, we'll end their direct debits when they cancel their membership. We'll start them throughout the year. There will be increasing amounts, decreasing amounts that they pay. So that's quite a key function for us in our CRM system. We probably use our CRM system a lot like you would use yours. We have the core membership functionality, which I've just talked about. We have individuals and organizations. We do all of our finance within the membership, so all of the payment schedules come within the CRM system, and that needs to link up to Sage, our accounting system, so that we can pass invoices back, or we can pass sales orders, we can pass information back into the database. We run about 90 events a year, so all the delegates for those are kept on the database, and we have an online event booking function. We also do member support. Because we're a trade union, we will support our members individually, and for that we need a kind of a case tracking system. So that's the case management system. And then the web, we have had I would say a fairly basic web integration in that there is an online part of the website just for members, so they log into that. They can update their details online. As I said, they can book events online. But that was one area that we wanted to look at. We wanted to increase the functionality of the website. So that's a little bit about us. Why change? Back in, we really started this process at the back end of 2012, which seems like a long time ago. But what we really wanted to do, we were looking at our database. We felt that we were outgrowing the database that we had. We had a kind of an off-the-shelf product, and we really wanted more bespoke functionality for that. We wanted to be able to add other fields. We wanted to be able to make connections between members and organizations that we couldn't. The events module was a bit clunky. There was still lots of Excel spreadsheets floating around. We were trying to get everything into that one CRM system, but people were still kind of sneaking off and doing Excel spreadsheets here and there. So we really wanted to bring all that information into one place. We really wanted to get that seamless web integration as well. We wanted to be able to do joining online, to do your direct debits online, and to book events, and have all of that information very seamlessly going into the database and just kind of coming together so that we had all that information that we could draw on in one place. The web integration that we had, the handshake between the website and the database was pretty shaky, and that would drop out quite a bit as well. So that was a big area of concern for us, because we know how important it is, for members to be able to access the website at any time and to be able to use that when they can't get a hold of us. As I mentioned before, because we have 50 staff working from home, we also wanted a web-based CRM, and at that point we didn't have a web functionality with our CRM system. So that was something that we wanted. We also wanted to be able to use it more as a communication tracking tool, so to be able to attach emails or attach notes and information that we could use to track communication with a member journey, to track a case if we were dealing with the member individually. We also wanted a better way of getting data out of the system. We had all this good data in our database, but we really struggled to get that into a meaningful report and an easy way of getting that information out. So that was another thing that we were looking to change. And we really wanted a database that would grow with us. That we knew that within education things are changing a lot, and we knew that we would be changing categories of members. We wanted something that we could adapt and that would grow as we grew and changed. So that's really the future-proofing element of it. So not a lot to ask for from a CRM system. So which system to go for? There were lots and lots of products out there, and we just don't have the technical expertise in our staff to make those kind of decisions. So we brought in a consultant to help us through that tender process. The first decision that we realized that we needed to make is whether we wanted to go with another kind of off-the-shelf system, or whether we wanted to go to kind of a bespoke system that was really tailored for what we wanted. This is how I tried to explain it to our board of directors. If we went with an off-the-shelf product, essentially you get the model built for you, don't you? You get the airplane, and I think there is some real advantages in that. Obviously, the development time is much less. It's quicker to implement. It doesn't require as much technical expertise from your staff. But as we know, the wings are where they are, and if you want the wings moved, that's very difficult. Or if you want an extra propeller, or you want it to go higher or lower, those options are a lot more difficult when you've got an off-the-shelf system. The bespoke, you get the box of Legos, but then you've got to find somebody to put those Legos into your airplane. If you want an airplane, or if you want a car, you can have a car. But I think the main thing that we looked at is how much technical expertise do we need to do that? And I think you really do need to know exactly what you want if you go for a bespoke system. And you need to have that kind of technical underlying document, whatever it is that helps you, your scoping document really, that template, to get you where you want to go. And you also have to find the right provider, the right developers, and the right company to help you do that, someone who really understands what you want to achieve. So the decision that we made, we went with the bespoke system. We went with a completely bespoke Microsoft Dynamics system. In the end, I think that was the right decision for us. What we didn't appreciate at that time, I think, was just how much technical expertise that would require from us, from our staff, and how much resource that we would need to devote to that. That was the kind of, if I'd only known what I know now. It is the right decision, but it was a long process and a more difficult process to get there than I think any of us anticipated. But I'll talk more about that in a minute. So our journey, as I said, we made the decision probably in spring 2013 to go with MS Dynamics. And we decided that the first bit of it we would work on was the member support, the case management side of it, because we felt that was the bit of the current database that really didn't work for that team, and that was 50% of our staff who were using that bit of the database. So that was a really key part for us. So we started that in the spring, and by August we had gone live with that module, which we thought, great, this is easy. Well, this is going to be a snap. There were still things to work through and bugs that we needed to fix, but we were live, and people were saying how much better this was than the old system. So it was a real quick win, and in hindsight, it has been a quick win. We have half of our staff who have been using the system for a long time. It makes training easier when you get to be able to stage your go live like that. But in hindsight, that's also caused issues for us in terms of data migration, because what we were doing is syncing every night from the current database to the new one with member support with case functionality on it. And inevitably, that makes your data a lot messier. So in hindsight, would we have done that? I'm still deciding. There are pros and cons to it. We then went to the events module and looked at that one because that was, we thought, the next most straightforward one to implement. And that one we signed off in April of 2014. We didn't go live with it, but we signed it off. And then we started looking at the membership and the accounting modules. And that's when kind of things slowed down quite a lot. Because I think that's when we realized just how much technical understanding that we needed of not only what we wanted out of the system, but how to build that system so that we could then communicate that to the developers so that they could go away and build it. I think they can build anything that we wanted them to build, but we needed to tell them what we wanted them to build. And we weren't, at that point, we didn't really have a clear understanding of what we wanted. We knew what we wanted to do, but we didn't know the technical way to make it do that. We also realized that with the version of the accounting software that we had, the Dynamics and that accounting software were not going to talk to each other. So at that point, we had to stop and go back and look at our accounting software and see what we were going to do with that, because we knew that we were outgrowing that as well. So we ended up upgrading our accounting software, our Sage software, to the next version. So we were now running two projects in parallel. We were running the finance accounting software upgrade, and we were running the CRM system upgrade. I wouldn't advise running two projects like that at the same time if you can help it at all. When you don't have a lot of extra resource on staff, that's probably not the wisest decision. But that was what we needed to do in order to go live. So we brought in the new finance system. We got through a lot of the membership, a lot of the functionality with the membership that was built. And we started looking at the data migration, and that's when we realized that the bright idea that we had of going live with the case management system was actually going to cause us huge problems with the data migration, because we were trying to put data onto data that was already there. We weren't just jumping into a clean database, and so we had to do a lot of work. The developers were really good helping us with this to kind of clear out that data, keep the data that we needed, take out the data that we didn't need. We changed fields, so there were fields that we were populating in the new database that we weren't then going to be using when we brought in the rest of the system. So it did get very complicated. So we had to stop again and look at our plans for data migration and really develop a kind of a new system for that. So that took us up until kind of early this year. I don't know how it took us that long, but somehow it did take us that long. We were kind of starting to look at the go live, getting ready to put the plans in place for our go live. And because of the cycle that we work in, I'm sure you all have this where you have peaks and troughs. Given that we work in the rhythm of an academic year with schools, the summer is really the best time for us to go live, because that, if there is a quiet time, that's the quiet time for us. So we were really looking towards July, August to go live. We then went back to the events, and in the meantime, we had a new director of our events and training who came in with a lot of bright ideas and said, I want to do this, I want to do that, and looked at the database and said, oh, actually, the new CRM system isn't going to let us do that, or it's not going to let us do that. So we went back and looked at the events again, and I think this is another thing. If you have a long, drawn-out project, inevitably your requirements will change, and any business is constantly evolving, and you're going to want to do new things, do different things, do things better. The needs of your members will change, so you'll be changing the products and the services that you offer. So you've got to be able to maintain that flexibility as well as drive the project through. And we did have to, at some point, cut off and say, okay, no more changes, no more developments. We're going to go live with what we have, and then phase 2 will be looking at some of these new developments. So I think that was one lesson we learned as well. You just need to have a cut off and say, enough tinkering is enough. We're just going to have to go live. So we did go live this August, late August, and we're still getting used to the system. I think it's been two months. Events, so we're still looking at the events functionality and how we develop that. A big one for us is the reporting. So we have this wonderful new database with all this great data in it, but we are still working on how do we get that data out in a really accessible format so that it's very easy for staff, for directors, for our board to be able to quickly see the data and to try to automate some of those processes. So a lot of it is about mail merge letters. It's about being able to quickly pull something out, to pull those stats out. I think for some of our staff, there was the assumption that if you have the data, you can just get it in any way you want it. And actually, I think Dynamics does have a lot better reporting tools and querying functionality built into it. So that did give us a step forward. We are in a better position than we were with the previous system. But for some of those more complicated and more complex queries that we want to do, we're still developing ways to get that information out. But I think that's when your database, your CRM system really becomes powerful, is when you can actually use that data and use that to inform what you do as a business, to inform your marketing, it's all of the things we've been hearing today about how you really engage with your members and segment your members. So that's one thing that we're still working on. And the web, we are still, we haven't quite gone live with all of the web functionality that we want to. So that's an ongoing project. So once the go live happens, it doesn't end. I think that's another lesson. It is still an ongoing process. So what did we learn? I think the first three, dedicated resource, project management, technical knowledge, I think we really underestimated the amount of resource that we would need to put in a project like this. And I think it's more so probably with a bespoke system that you are really developing from the ground up, but probably with any system. We did realize that we needed a dedicated resource in-house to help us with this. And it needed to be someone who had project management experience, but also that real technical understanding, not just of kind of databases and CRM systems in general, but also of our own system, and really looking through each of the fields and how those worked, all the processes and how those work. So someone who could really get under the skin of us as an organization. I think what we when we went through the tendering process, we asked all of our individual teams to put together essentially a scoping document or a tendering document for themselves. And really, we needed to have somebody sit down with them and go through it step by step by step. I think we should have spent a lot more time on that part of the process. But we did. When we got to about April of last year, we did realize that we can't do this without a dedicated resource. So we did find a consultant that we brought in, kind of on a fixed term contract, who really worked with us about 3 days a week and came into the office and had a space, actually a corner of my office. And I had to get to office share for a year and a half. And so she really helped to drive that project forward after that. I think that was just so crucial for us to be able to get what we wanted out of the system. As I've just said, the scoping process, I think we should have spent a lot more time on the scoping process and to really make it clear, not just the processes that we were doing at the time, so documenting what we were doing at the time, but really to sit and think through what do we want it to do, not just getting another version of what we already have or doing the same things that we already do because that's the system that we had before. But on a blank sheet of paper, what would we want the system to do? What could it do for us? And really detailing that out. And alongside that, I think it's procedural. So those are a lot about the processes, but you also need that technical documentation. So really going through in pretty minute detail about what's underlying your database at the moment, what fields are there, and what information do you want to pull into the new database, what don't you want to pull in, what do you want to leave, doing all that data cleansing as well. And I would say along the way, once you've got those documents, I think along the process, I think we had a lot of really good discussions with our developers, with our consultant, and then we said, great, we're going to go do that, we're going to go away and do that. And then 6 months later we said, did we say we were going to do that? Did anyone take notes at that meeting? Do you remember what we said? So I think having somebody there who said, and we all tried to take notes, and we're all scurrying through our notes to see who said what, but having somebody dedicated there to really document what you've said along the way and to add that to your scoping document, it would have helped us a lot. I think I mentioned the core processes. In hindsight, I think we did have some real advantages by going live with a section of the database, but generally I think my advice would be look at your core membership processes first and make sure that you've got those right and that you've got your data right and that's solid, and then do the add-on bits. I think we probably did it backwards, which ended up costing us time in the process. Staff buy-in is always a tricky one, I think. Staff say, oh yes, we want a new database, we don't like the one we have, but we don't have time to test and we don't have time to do the scoping, so yeah, it'll be fine, just do it. And then you get to the very end of the go live and say, oh, but it doesn't do that. Oh, but we wanted it to do that, and we wanted it to do that. So I think setting that expectation for staff that they do really need to put in time and how much time and when we need that time from them. And you're not always popular when you do that, but that is really important as well. We did notice that we had a productivity dip when we went live, and I think that's frustrating for people because the things that they wanted that they could do before very quickly, they couldn't do anymore. And part of that's just getting used to the new system. And I think that's probably something that we didn't prepare people for, and it was frustrating for some of the staff. And they're getting back up to speed now, it's much better. But I think just kind of setting that expectation that things will be more difficult for the first couple months of your go live. And then, as I said, reporting tools. We really need to get that reporting right, and that's probably, in an ideal world, we would have done that before go live. We're doing some of that work now after go live. So probably, again, the wrong way around, but it's a judgment call about when you go live. I think if you go live too early, obviously it creates a lot of problems for your members, and what you don't want to do is affect your membership and the experience that they have. But you can tinker and tinker and tinker and check and test, and you'll never go live. So I think you have to pick a point. You say, right, it's 90%, it's 95% there. We'll go with it, and we'll figure out the bugs when we get there. So I think, in hindsight, it was the right decision for us. The bespoke dynamic solution is right for us. It won't be right for everybody. And I think it really depends on how much internal resource you have to devote to that. But I think the real exciting thing for us is about the future, and what possibilities it gives us, because I think this is really a system that will grow with us, and hopefully it's one that we'll have in place now for the next, I would hope 5-10 years, that we can really develop and make it what we want to be. So that's the most exciting part. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that truthful session. It's actually good. I think that's part of what this conference is about. It's actually about us talking to each other and actually learning kind of what went right, what went wrong, and how we can learn from each other. So I really do appreciate that. It's great. So what it is, I've got some questions to ask you at the bar. We've got literally a couple of minutes. So the first one I've got for you, it was quite clear that obviously integration was a big thing for you, and I'm assuming that might have been because of things not being as integrated as you'd like them to be in the past. When it came to, and we're seeing a lot more providers in the marketplace when it comes to Microsoft Dynamics as a product, what was it that made you think, right, that's it? What made you kind of go for it?
I think it was, part of it was the communication side of it. I hate to say it, but I think there is something about Microsoft that you know that Microsoft will be around and they will keep developing the product.
Okay. So security, that was
security, yes. Future-proofing again. The communication side of it, the integration with Outlook was very attractive to us and is very attractive to us. And I think it is a system that will be there for a long time, but as well, you're not tied to one provider because anybody can pick it up and develop it. It's not proprietary. Okay, so flexibility is quite important for you as well. So that makes complete sense. And taking you right back to the start of the journey that you had when it came to you actually choosing providers, because obviously there were a number of providers you could have gone with. I mean, if you think of going back on that process, and for other people who are about to embark on that journey, because there were quite a few hands up in here, when it comes to procurement, what would be your top tip? What would be the first, key thing to kind of keep in mind at the beginning? I think for us, it was really important to find a company that we could work with well. I think don't underestimate, just that gut instinct about could we, it's a long slog, it's a long process. So could we work with these people for the next year, the next 18 months or 2 years? I think that was important. For us, I think because we're a relatively small organization, we don't work a lot on kind of really strict processes. So we wanted a company that would be quite flexible with us. And we weren't really kind of tied into, well, that's your development slot, and if you have that week, then if you don't make that week, then we'll fit you in another 8 weeks or something like that. We wanted someone who could be quite flexible. Okay, and the role of the consultancy that you brought in, and again, we've come across a number of conversations over the past year within the network about that kind of, if you like, sort of three organisation type relationship. Was the role of the consultant to actually really do the delivery or actually translate your requirements to the actual functionality of what the products could provide? What was their role? I think it was more the latter, yeah. Okay. It was really about trying to understand what we wanted to get out of it and then to interpret that, kind of put that into technical speak and give it to the developers. And then when the developers came back, put it into layman's terms for us about what that actually means. So it's almost like a translation exercise, and that's not the first time that we've come across that, and that's a role that has been played by consultancies in a number of projects over the past year or so. I can completely sympathise with you from the testing perspective. It is a frustration because everyone just wants it, don't they? They just want it there and then. And organisations, again, that we've seen that don't invest in having a decent staging environment, doing proper testing, having, like we talked about it earlier this afternoon, dedicated resource. It's kind of hiding to nowhere, really, because it just provides so much more safety and security with such a big exercise. And just finally, one question that I've got for you as well. How did you handle scope creep? How did you handle, as you were going through the journey, extra things dropping in and stuff? How did you deal with that? Yeah, that was difficult. We really needed to make a judgment call about whether that was something that was really going to cause problems if it wasn't there. Is it really going to hinder effective working of that team, or is it something that was nice to have? If it was something that essentially was already in the functionality that they had currently, whether it was in the CRM or somewhere else, then we said, all right, we need to make sure that what they get at the end of it is as good as they have now. And if it was a nice to have, then we said phase 2 is a wonderful thing. That's phase 2. That's phase 2.
I think there's some understanding nods in the room with that. Okay, well, we're going to take 10 minutes out now. Again, thank you very much to Sarah for that. That was a fantastic session, very honest and truthful. Thank you.